Good morning, good afternoon, or good night, depending on where you are right now. This is John Richardson coming to you from Toronto, Canada, in my latest podcast, in my ongoing series of podcasts for the American Expat Financial News Journal. My return guest today is Ronald Ariës, a retired Dutch airline pilot who, as many of you will already know, was born in the U.S., but grew up with his Dutch parents in the Netherlands. As many of you will also know, because you are naturally dedicated readers of the American Expat Financial News Journal, Ronald celebrated a major victory last week when a Dutch court overturned a previous ruling that he was entitled to keep his accounts with his local bank, get this, even if he didn't provide that bank with a U.S. tax identification number, aka Social Security number, as long as those holdings in the accounts don't exceed $50,000. Well, this is amazing. It's a first, and Ronald is going to go down in history, I predict, as being the man who established the principle that even those born in the United States are entitled to a bank account.
Yeah.
And on that note, welcome, Ronald. It's always a lot of fun to connect with you on these podcasts. I think this is the third one we've done, isn't it?
That's correct, yeah.
So,
I'm always looking forward to it, but of course I have to prepare myself in all these different languages, in all this court blah blah, it's difficult.
I like the way you put that, the court blah, blah. That's about it. Blah,
yeah,
blah, blah. So,
yeah,
part of our job here is to try to find the part of the blah, blah, that matters, and was it sort of the root of the decision. But, for those who don't know you, let's go into a little bit of the history of your life and involvement in this. I'll do what I remember and believe to be the summary here, but feel free to add and jump in and all that good stuff. So, in the beginning, back in the day, you are the son, I believe, of a Dutch Air Force person, correct?
yeah, correct. My father was in the Dutch Air Force as a lieutenant.
Okay.
And he was sent as in a detachment to the United States for almost 2 years. And my mother was allowed to come over as well to join my father, but she was already pregnant from me.
Oh my God! So you were born in the USA?
Yeah, in Fort Monmouth in New Jersey. And
Was it a
in my
proud moment in your life?
in my early years of life,
thought, thank God I'm an American.
oh, I was delighted to say, oh wow, it's very who can tell that he's born in the United States and okay, he still lives in Holland. But if I would have been 18 and I would the things to know now, because I cannot go back in history, before my 18th birthday I would already have given my American citizenship, because of the hassle they give me now with the FATCA ruling.
You mean you would have renounced it
Already? Because I would, before 18 years you have to make a decision. You want to stay in the United States citizen or not. But the things I know now, I'm too late.
You would have terminated the citizenship relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
Can you remind me again, how old were you when you returned to Holland?
I was almost 1 year old.
So you didn't even live a year in the United States?
No, correct.
Do you remember living that year in the United States?
No, not at all. So, like I told you last time, I could only remember that time of the pictures kept by my father and mother. That's it.
So in other words, if your parents had not specifically told you that you'd spent the first year of your life in the United States, you would have had no recollection of it at all?
At all, no. Of course you see the memory books, the photo books of my parents. Yeah. My father proud in his uniform of the Dutch Air Force, with his little. But my brother was also there because he was 1 year old, and fortunately for him, he was born in Haarlem in Holland. He had no problem at all. And then my father was standing there with his son Ronald in his hands, proud. Yeah, I was proud as well.
And yeah, sure. And so you were. am I correct in saying that you were born a citizen of the Netherlands? That you were born a Dutch citizen as well?
Yeah, because I was born from a Dutch father and Dutch mother, so I'm Dutch. But
That's
unfortunately,
interesting.
yeah, but unfortunately by the Dutch, by the American, yeah, how do you call it, laws, I was born on American soil, so yeah, unfortunately I became also an American citizen.
So basically, at the moment of your birth, you would be what would be called a dual national or dual citizen today. You were automatically a Dutch citizen
Yeah,
because your father was a Dutch citizen, and an American citizen because you were born on U.S. soil.
yeah,
Interesting.
and that's the only thing that ties me with the United States.
Hmm. Okay. So then you come back and you grow up in the Netherlands. You're educated in the Netherlands. You find your way to becoming a KLM pilot along the way, and all that. And you were presumably flying these jumbo jets into the United States, were you?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Did you have a sense when you entered American airspace that you were coming home?
I didn't feel different.
Nothing at all. No.
Nothing at all, no, no.
You
Because
still felt
the
safe.
aircraft was blue, and that's Dutch. It's Dutch soil.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the U.S. is has a rule that says basically that if you're born in the United States, that you're a U.S. citizen, and that was all okay until what exactly happened that became a problem for you?
In 2018, when I changed banks, then I tried to open with a different bank an account, and that was everything was okay. I just gave them my they make the copy of my Dutch passport. I filled in all the forms, and a couple of days after the when I had the meeting at the bank, I got a lot of paperwork stating that I could be a U.S. person, and they want to have all this kind of information of me, which I in fact I didn't know what is going on. And that was in 2018 already, and then I went back to the bank and said, listen, what do I have to do? Yeah, I said, the lady said in that branch of the bank, she didn't know either. So I said, okay, you have to just fill it in like this, and then there's no problem. You can get a bank account. So I followed her instructions. I did. My bank accounts were opened, and my money was being transferred from the old bank to this bank, and no problem.
So
And
just to be
after,
clear here, my understanding is that under the law of the Netherlands, that you are entitled, that you have a legal right to having a bank account of that type, right?
yeah, correct. Also by European law.
So Dutch law, European law, the law of where you live, have always lived, and where you regard yourself as a citizen, mandates that you, Ronald Ariës, are entitled to this bank account.
Yeah,
And all of a sudden, because of some edict from the United States, you're having trouble getting this bank account open. Is that correct?
yeah, because yeah, in fact, they pushed me to the wall. I said, listen, you have to give us your either your social security number or your TIN number, and after that you could even go get your CLN number, your certificate loss of nationality. I said, I don't know what it is. I don't have an SSN number because I was born in 1958, and that time people were born in the United States didn't get automatically an SSN number. I think I don't know what date it was that people born in the United States get that SSN number by birth. Is it maybe 2010 or something like that? But I didn't have it. Like a lot of people here in Holland, which are in the same position, didn't have the SSN number. So at that time I started digging into what it really was happening, FATCA, what it really means to me. And I said, this is outrageous. I don't want to comply. I'm not. I was born here. I was born in the United States. I was raised in Holland. I went to educate myself there. I worked in the Netherlands, and now I'm retired. I paid my taxes. I did everything I could, and from Holland I got my medical care. I got everything from Holland because I paid for it. From the United States, I did receive anything. I didn't receive any education. I didn't receive any money from them, but still they wanted to rip off my bank account. So I said, no, this is unfair. I'm not going to deal with this. So I put my heels in the ground and said, stop. I'm not working with it. And at that time, when I wrote that letter, said I do not comply. My bank said, okay, sorry, then we have to close your accounts, knowing that I couldn't go anywhere to another bank without a bank account. They already knew for ages that that was not possible for us. So let's see. In Holland, you live here in Europe, with no bank account. That means, where do I get my pension from? Where do I get? How do I pay my mortgage? How do I pay my insurance money? I cannot do it. I cannot live.
Yeah, no, I mean these are great points you make, and one of the things that I have observed over the years is that it is impossible for any U.S. based supporter of FATCA to understand this. I mean, really, would it be accurate for me to say that the U.S. is essentially strangling the ability to live away from citizens and residents of other countries?
Yeah,
Do you
that's
agree with
that's
that?
what they're doing. They really put us to the wall. There's so much stress they give us. And for what reason? Because in
But you're
Europe,
born in the United States. So, in other words, if you're born in the United States and if you leave the United States, they are not going to let you live in a normal way along with your other citizens unless you comply with a set of U.S. rules. Is that
yeah,
correct?
yeah, and even goes worse. Even if you were born in the Netherlands, but from an American parent, you're also in the same situation.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
People born in the Netherlands, from a parent of a parent, let's say it's a father or mother, they also are a US person. But in their case, it's simple because in their passports it says, okay, I'm this and that, that's my name. I was born in Haarlem, not stating that you were born from a United States citizen.
So
So
you're
they,
telling me that if a U.S. citizen does move to another country and has a child, then it is possible that because the child was born of a U.S. citizen parent, that child is disabled for essentially the rest of their life. Is that the
yeah,
case?
yeah, that's totally the case. Yeah, and the thing is with FATCA, all the time I was really makes me sick is that we have to get the money of this. We already discussed about the self FATCA, the Hire Act. But the thing is that people are not rich; they are just hard-working middle class people which are being hurt
Do you
tremendously.
realize, though, that in the United States, the perception is that every American citizen living outside the United States is rich and lives outside the United States to avoid U.S.
That is from the
No, that's what they think.
if I read it in Homelanders, if I see it all in the newspapers, if I see it on all the media, yeah, we are all rich. All the people living and working outside the United States, they are rich, so they have to tax. No, these people are not rich. They work and they live a normal life
Well, in
because
fact, shockingly, this Democrat Senator Whitehouse last year during one of the Senate finance hearing actually made a joke. He said that
yeah, with fat
FATCA
cats.
represents fat cat.
Yeah, can
I
you
mean,
imagine?
I mean, the ignorance is absolutely shocking. I mean, at its core, what you're describing is a situation where the United States is interfering with the ability of people to live in their countries of primary citizenship and residence just because they were either born in the United States or because they were born to a U.S. citizen parent.
Yeah, correct. Yeah, that's what's
Wow.
happening. Yeah,
So this is what happens to you. So, you have this interesting life. You're flying these planes around the world. You reach the point of retirement, and I bet you didn't think that your next big job after flying pilots for KLM was to become the symbol for the freedom of people born in the United States. You didn't think that at the time, did you?
no, because I thought flying is giving you a certain sense of freedom. You can go anywhere you like. Okay, you pay a bit, but you can go. But now I don't. I feel just trapped. I couldn't. I'm jailed here. I said, oh wait, let's say okay, after 9/11, also I was jailed because flying in the cockpit was not so nice anymore because the whole cockpit was barred and nobody could enter the cockpit without any codes or so. So that at that time, flying being let's say pilot was not so nice anymore because in the past everybody could visit us in the cockpit and you have night flights and you have a little chit chat and yeah you can last forever. But now you're just sitting with two or three of you and just looking outside and that's it.
not that it's relevant to our discussion, but where were you on 9/11? Were you flying a plane somewhere?
No, I was just at home.
Uh-huh.
I remember because I was just picking up my kids were just on the kindergarten, and some people knew I was a pilot. They said, "Did you hear about it? Did you hear about it?" I said, "No, I don't. It was around 12 o'clock in Holland."
Yeah.
And I raced home and I saw the CNN. I put on CNN. And I saw these pictures or the movie and aircraft just flying into it. I said, "Wow, what's happening?"
Yeah, it was absolutely
Unbelievable.
surreal.
Yeah, real surreal. Yeah, that's the right word.
Okay, so basically, you're trying to open this new account. They're saying, no, we're not going to let you open this account unless you have a U.S. Social Security number. And your response is, nope, 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 this is unjust. I didn't choose where I was born.
No.
Okay, I'm not really a U.S. citizen at all. This is a bunch of nonsense. I'm not going to comply. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use whatever legal processes or avenues may be available to prevent this, right?
Yeah, correct.
All right. So what's the first thing you did?
First, I wrote a complaint to the bank. Of course, they denied the complaint. I had to do it a second time.
What do they say? How do they deny it? Do they just say tough luck? You're born in the U.S.
Yeah,
Suck
that's
it up?
what I said. Yeah, yeah, something like that. It's just in a short phrase. And then I could go because in Holland, everything is being perfectly arranged. We have a lot of institutions. They will really look after you as Dutch citizens, like the institution is it Kivit. That is the Financial Service Complaint Tribunal. You can go there with your complaint, and you sit there, and the banks are there as well. But these guys are being paid, are being by the banks and by the insurance companies. So that is like a butcher's testing his own meat.
Yeah,
Of
yeah,
course.
that is true. That is true.
So what happened is that they wrote a verdict, accusing me for everything. Like uh, I put in some. I was a tax fraud. I was a tax evader. I had I had forgery because I didn't fill in the correct paperwork, and all this kind of stuff. I
Ronald,
was
it doesn't sound like they liked you.
No, they don't like me. They don't like you as persons because we want to get rid of them. That's my idea now.
Well, I think it's clearly the case they want to get rid of them.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a huge problem and all around the world, but especially in these European countries where, I mean, I don't think anybody really knows what the number of these people really is. But it's not an insignificant number at all. And the real
yeah,
point, I think, is that by buying into this stuff, these countries like Netherlands and others are simply saying it's okay for the U.S. to decide who in our country is allowed to have a bank account, right?
yeah, right.
Where does it stop? I mean, why not the next step, decide who's allowed to have certain jobs, who's allowed to run for parliament?
Yeah, but there's also a lot of things happening on suspicion. Maybe you're a tax fraud. Maybe you're doing this. Maybe let's say you're gonna find all the people driving a car. The speed limit is 55, but no, I was driving 53. No, but I already can give you a fine because it could be possible that you would overspeed. I don't know what the reason behind this.
Well, I think that's an interesting analogy. So, in other words, Americans need to be identified and, in a sense, put into a certain quarantine because it's possible that they might be a tax cheat, right? I mean,
Yeah,
do you think there's something about being American that increases the possibility of you being a tax cheat?
what I ask also in at the Dutch Parliament is listen. Let's say I'm sure I'm not a taxi because I paid my taxes in Holland, and you can easily the Minister of Finance can easily go dive into my account and say, okay, he always pays his taxes, and I paid a lot of taxes in Holland,
A lot.
but a lot of taxes, yeah, more than I would have been paying in the United States. So maybe I at 18, at the age of 18, I should have moved to the United States and being a pilot and get a nice salary. I wouldn't have any hustle, and I put my money in Delaware, so nobody would take care.
Or South Dakota,
Yeah, South Dakota, we go there.
Delaware, the dude in Delaware. Well, that,
Yeah,
of course, is one of the very interesting things about FATCA is that what it does is because the U.S. demands all this information, but doesn't give any information, coupled with the fact that the United States has been unwilling to sign the CRS, the Common Reporting Standard, It created a perfect situation for the United States to become the number one tax and
Haven.
privacy haven in the world.
Yeah.
It's an extraordinary thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but then be honest and say, listen, this is what we are trying to gain. This is what our direction is. Don't tell lies. Don't tell people, because I still cannot believe the FATCA is costing so much money only because of implementation in the whole Europe. All the banks had to, and the ministries, they had all do the compliance, and I cannot. I fell over from all the amount of money. It's in billions. It costs already, and what does it get? That nothing's coming back from the FATCA, because I never see. Okay, it's all being taken care of. The revenue is okay. Yeah, only what I read is that the F bar, the FATCA, is only because all the how do you call it? The fines they give. Because easily, if I do something wrong in my tax sheet, I get $10,000 fine. And all the time, okay, if you count all these $10,000 fines together, yeah, you get a lot of money. Only the F bar is rendering the FATCA regulation giving some money back, but still it's not giving any revenue.
Well,
But I pay my share in Holland.
that is absolutely true. But to be clear, you absolutely reject the notice that the idea that you're somehow a tax cheat, a tax evader, or guilty of tax fraud.
Yeah, I detest it.
Yeah, I don't blame you at all. I mean, what a bunch of garbage. Okay, I mean, you're a presumptive tax cheat because you live outside the United States, have never lived in the United States. It's madness, absolute madness. Okay, so we're setting the stage for now. You and I last connected. I think it was early November before the actual hearing, right? We had, as always, a very interesting discussion. So tell me about what happened on November the 11th, the hearing. Now, I understand the decision came down just like within the last week or so, I think.
Yeah, it was December 29. Yeah.
December the 29th. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, in the meantime, because the first court case I lost on 2/3. No, I won on 2/3 of the yeah of the items, but still the tax sheet stand up and said, okay, this the bank still can use to deny me my bank account. And still, of course, I appealed against it because, fortunately for me, the bank offered me let's say, kind of period till October 31st that I would keep my bank account. And I could use this time to appeal, which I did. And then there was already a written hearing. So my lawyer already, because a lot of new material pops up and say, okay, this is not right, that's not right, we have this law, we have that law. So all my lawyer did is, and I really give her my compliments, she'll render that in to the judge. And he came back on August the 25th with a luxury judgment that where the Volksbank was ordered to continue the service until the end of 2021. And on November the 11th, we had to go to court. Unfortunately, also in the Corona period, so not many people were allowed to get into the court. And there was a main question from the judge is that was the Volksbank allowed to terminate my bank accounts because of the refusal to provide the US TIN and to file tax returns in the US.
Okay, so to be clear on the main issue before the court, if we can sort of pare this down a little bit, okay?
Yeah.
I think your last sentence pretty much captured it. So the question is, given a U.S. birthplace, is the bank allowed to deny you a bank account because you haven't filed a social security number with them? That's the issue, right?
That's the issue, yeah, correct.
Okay. All right. So now this is interesting because, the whole FATCA apparatus does require, as a general principle, that once somebody's been identified as a U.S. person, that the bank has to use best efforts to get their social security number, right?
To my opinion, they did. They did the best effort, but they didn't get it from me.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. Yeah,
Yeah, so I think now
really
easily.
fought and they lost.
Yeah, but to shorten all this discussion about this lawsuit, I think this is a win-win situation to me and to the bank. For me,
Okay, now
it's
let's just hold on that for 1 second and perhaps a little bit of background, if I can, before to give what you're about to say some context. So what I want to do is I want to read from the section of the U.S. Netherlands FATCA IGA that seems to me to be at the root of your hearing. Now, Ronald, you've told me that your accounts, obviously, okay, if you're going to the bank in 2018, you're trying to open the account after 2014. So this is what's called a new individual account, all right, under the agreement. And it starts off by saying, and anybody who wants to find this, just Google U.S. Netherlands FATCA IGA. Okay, this is the annex. You'll see accounts not required to be reviewed, identified, or reported. Right? Accounts not required to be reviewed, identified, or reported. Now, unless the reporting Netherlands financial institution elects otherwise, either with respect to all new individual accounts or separately with respect to any clearly identified group of such accounts where the implementing rules in the Netherlands provide for such an election, the following new individual accounts are not required to be reviewed, identified, or reported. In other words, the bank doesn't have to do this to meet their FATCA obligations. And the first one is, and I think this is the one that's relevant for our discussion, is a depository account unless the account balance exceeds $50,000 at the end of any calendar year or other appropriate reporting period. Now let's dissect that. First of all, it does not say any account, it says a depository account. And a depository account is just sort of a basic day-to-day bank account, not for investment purposes, but just for life purposes, so to speak. And I think that's what these were for you, correct?
yeah, correct, yeah.
Okay. All right. So now this is important. Okay, I think this is very, very important because this is restricted to a depository account. So if this were an investment account or a brokerage account, then this would not apply, right? But unless the account exceeds $50,000 at the end of any calendar year or other appropriate reporting period. Okay. So what that means is that basically, if the bank wants to report, if the bank wants to either report or suck these accounts into the FATCA regime that are depository accounts below 50,000, then that's the decision of the bank. It is not what's required under the FATCA agreement. Is that also your interpretation of what that says?
Yeah, that's also my interpretation, yeah.
Okay. And I think that actually ended up being the interpretation of the court on November the 11th, didn't it?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. And I'm looking now at a translation of the decision. And basically, what the decision says is exactly that. That in this particular case, the bank was not required under the FATCA agreement, to treat your account as a reportable account. And therefore, there was absolutely no legal basis whatsoever for denying you the right to have this account. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I totally agree with that, yeah.
Okay. Is there anything you'd like to add to that? I don't know that if we look at what appears to me, for those who want to look at the decision, it's 4.11, 4.11. Okay, where the written decision says, the above mentioned annex to the FATCA Convention, which is what I just read in, contains an exception for bank accounts opened after 1 July 2014 with a balance below 50,000 at the end of the calendar year on which the financial institution operates. It's been established that combined balances opened after that date have at some point, but they have generally been below that limit, blah, blah, blah. Then it says, and this is what I think the key is, this not only means that Volksbank is currently no longer required to report your data to the tax authorities, but also contrary to their assertion, Volksbank does not any longer need to identify the claimant's bank account as relevant in the context of compliance with FATCA laws or regulations. After all, the mentioned provisions from the FATCA Convention speaks about accounts not required to be reviewed, identified, or reported as U.S. reportable accounts. Therefore, the bank accounts of plaintiff are at this moment no longer to be regarded as U.S. reportable accounts, etc. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in short form, what the court seems to be saying is FATCA doesn't apply to you in this circumstance, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, this is a very, very good decision for you. A very, very good decision for you. You don't have the anxiety anymore, as long as you keep these below 50,000.
Yeah, that's correct.
The only American citizen who's entitled to be left alone is somebody who has depository accounts below 50,000. But to be clear, if these were investment accounts, that decision would not apply, would it?
I don't know exactly. I had in the first court. I had also a little retirement account, and they also want to deny me that the account as well, the closed account. So imagine you get a little money saved for your pension on account. They close it, and you don't have a normal bank account. So what are you going to have to go to with the money? So the first judge decided to say no, it's not correct. The retirements are being excluded from the FATCA. So you're not allowed to close the retirement account.
Yes, that is correct. For all of these IGAs, there is a carve out for certain types of retirement planning accounts that are generally sanctioned under, in your case, Netherlands law. And you'll find that in the first part of the IGA, and there's a whole list of them. And this, by the way, is standard for all of these IGAs. In fact, they're all supposed to be treated in the same way. Okay. Now, again, I emphasize this is a great, great victory, and you absolutely should be congratulated for this and elevated to a certain world celebrity status for having had the courage, conviction to follow through on this. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit, though. I don't want to rain on the parade. All right, but it does seem to me that at its core, the decision seems to validate the FATCA regime. It's sort of saying it doesn't apply in your case, but generally it applies. Is that also your interpretation of this?
Yeah, because my lawyer he put in a lot more of articles, and all these that says what does the court rule. The other claims will be dismissed mostly for the lack of interest, because the judge, I think this is his safe way out. He didn't harm the banks. He didn't harm me.
It actually is a safe way out, because what the court did was it said, well, so the court has to deal with all these claims and complaints about what's going on. That's what happens when you deal with lawyers. Everything under the sun, has to come in, right? But by taking the position, the ruling that the FATCA rules did not apply in your case, it seems to me the court did two things. Number one, it generally validated the FATCA regime. And secondly, it gave itself an excuse to not deal with the other claims.
Yeah.
In the context, right? So, those seem to me to be live claims. And of course, there are worldwide a number of lawsuits against the FATCA regime, and I think probably one of the more well-known at the moment would be Jenny's in the UK. And that one is based on, I think more overreach in terms of conflicting with private data privacy interests and that sort of stuff. So interestingly, the decision didn't deal with anything beyond just the extent to which the FATCA regime applied to your circumstances, right?
No, but we brought it in, the GDPR, that is conflicting with the GDPR, with our AVG. But also that the judge put that aside because he said, okay, you can keep your account, so I'm not gonna dive into that.
Yeah, so they avoided dealing with that, and of course, my understanding is that Jenny's lawsuit is proceeding in the UK, and the purpose of that lawsuit is to deal precisely with that issue. I think, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's still the same. It's because all this data being transferred. There's already also an article in Bloomberg. Is that can the IRS be trusted with your data?
Oh,
It's
of course.
no, because we see a lot of breaches already. But the automatic and the disproportionate transfer of accidental Americans' banking information to the IRS by our own member states, like Holland, Belgium, France, it really violates the GDPR. So why do you have certain rules and you don't have to, you look away and say, okay, no, because the FATCA, we just look the other way, we turn a blind eye and we don't see it. We have the right to be protected by these laws.
Yeah,
And
that is, of course, absolutely true. And what I can't figure out is, I mean, as you may know, this whole issue has been part of my consciousness since the beginning of FATCA in 2010. And I had been involved in the Canadian lawsuit, which has, been through the courts and is at the Federal Court of Appeal stage. What I can't understand is why this is even still an issue with respect to, the people. I mean, you don't identify as being an American, so you're not even, really challenging U.S. tax regime. You're just challenging whether it should apply to you, basically. I
yeah,
mean, I don't understand why this is even an issue for people like you who've never lived in the United States, never had any connection. I mean, it's unbelievable to me that this could be going on. It's so incredibly, shockingly unjust. But yet, your government is going along with it. Government of Canada, all these governments are going along with it,
yeah,
right? In other words, what these governments are saying, what, the U.S. comes along and says, yeah, we want you to inflict pain on a certain group of your citizens and residents. Are you okay doing it? And they say, yeah, absolutely.
yeah, yeah, correct.
Our own citizens and residents. I
Yeah,
mean, do you agree with that characterization of it?
yeah. That was our previous Minister of Finance, Wop Hoekstra.
The
Because
what?
I remember Wop Hoekstra, he's a Minister of Finance. Yeah, I told you last time. There was, I think, the Pandora Papers came out, and there was a public hearing debate on September 28th. And one of the journalists I know pretty good, he was there to interview him, but he ran out of the door. And I talked to the journalist the day after. I said, "Have you any idea, any clue why he just ran away?" Because he already knew that it was be coming out the next day, the Pandora Papers, and he was in the paper. He had some money in Guernsey. He had something in the Virgin Islands. And this guy, he's blaming me as a taxpayer in Holland that I am a tax fraud.
Your fault, Ronald. It's your fault because
It's
you were
my
born
fault. Yeah.
in the USA.
And the thing is that this guy is still in office because now he goes to be a Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, yeah, he can easily take his suitcase with loaded full of money because he travels on our cost I think to the British and Virgin Islands. I'm so fed up with this guy.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It's terrible. I mean, it stinks to high heaven no matter which way you look at it. That's
Yeah.
for sure. Do you think, just sort of anecdotally or parenthetically, do you think that these kinds of laws in any way, shape, or form deter tax evasion?
No, I don't think so. No. Now maybe I didn't completely know your question. Is it? I think
Well,
if you
I
would
mean,
be
you think that these laws are really, I mean, you, of course, the problem is that you can't know because you're not a tax evader, right? So it's a very difficult question to ask somebody who's not a tax evader. But, you know, I mean, I don't, and the funny thing is, I never get, when people call me up for help, I never get tax evaders calling me,
no.
okay? Because I don't think that tax evaders call, lawyers or whatever asking for help, right? So it seems to me that this whole thing is just affecting people, like you who are, you know,
Yeah,
good people, trying
yeah.
to
To
contribute
live
to
to live a
society.
normal life,
Get
just to live
further.
a normal life. Yeah. And when I don't, I told you before. I said I don't know the $50,000. Okay, it's a threshold. Based on what? It's never being um raised because of inflation. Nothing.
Now
I
that's
think.
another very interesting point, right? Because if we look at 50,000 in 2000, well, 2014 when the IGAs went into effect, without raising that for inflation, pretty soon there will be no exemptions at all, right?
Yeah, correct. That's what I mean.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and very another interesting thing. All right,
so
so
I have always the questions also. Why are the governments doing not doing their jobs, protecting our own citizens? These people in the United States, in the Senate or in now what is it? Where the Democrats or the Republicans are fighting each other all the time.
yeah, yeah,
What is in their minds? Do they
nothing,
get a
nothing.
kick out of it? Do they?
I mean, they're legislating about. First of all, I think it has to do with the way FATCA. Okay, to answer your question in part, was never something that was introduced as a standalone law that anybody even talked about. It was introduced as what's called a revenue offset,
Yeah,
meaning a bunch of garbage at the end of the bill as sort of so they were going to pretend that they were going to pay for this thing, right?
yeah.
So this is part of the problem in that, you get Congress voting on this, and I guarantee you that the vast majority of them don't even know that it's in the law.
No,
So,
it's
uh,
unbelievable, eh?
well, it's, it, what it, yeah, well, yeah, it is unbelievable, but I mean, it also guarantees that the combination of revenue offsets, right? Adding something to pay for it, plus the propensity to have what are called omnibus bills, 5, 10 things, in one piece of legislation, makes it very, very difficult to focus on anything and provides the opportunity to include all kinds of evil in the lawmaking process.
Yeah, but I've been reading something about a bill to repeal FATCA by, I think it was already in 2013 and again in 2017 by
Rand
Senator
Paul,
Paul Rand. So
yeah,
what's
Rand
happening to
Paul.
that? And even Mark Meadows was joining him.
Well, yeah, yeah, and I mean, I was at the Meadows hearing myself in April of 2017 in the room watching this thing, and um, it was almost surreal, right? You've got the way it was set up was very combative in the sense that you had so Mark Meadows was a Republican and Rand Paul was a witness for the Republicans, and the Democrats, of course, in total opposition to this, had their own witnesses, people like Elise Bean. I mean, it was a ridiculous discussion because what it really lacked was the ability to see how this actually affected the people where it applied, namely outside the United States. It's as though, FATCA only applied to sort of people living in the United States with accounts outside the United States. Who knows how many people like that there actually are? Probably not all that many. Um, but the real impact of it was on people outside the United States, and the combination of FATCA and the citizenship taxation nonsense has meant that what the United States has really achieved since 2010 is completely devaluing U.S. citizenship. Making it not only a very bad citizenship to have, but also, interestingly, the only citizenship in the world that is worth renouncing and is worth paying money to renounce. I mean, it's
Yeah,
amazing to me.
but listen, you see already a row of people standing there to get their American citizenship. You want to pay some money. How much does it cost? $200 to get your American citizenship?
Well, it
So
costs a
who?
lot less than to renounce it. I don't
Yeah,
know. I think it's about $800 to get it,
yeah.
two thousand
But
three hundred fifty
but
dollars to
but who
renounce.
cares? Who cares in the Senate? Okay, we get so many Americans in, and okay, let's say 2,500 or 3,000 per year go away because of FATCA. I don't know.
Well, that's one way of looking at it. But there's I think they're huge. I mean, this is just my own opinion, speaking off the cuff. But I think that there are very, very severe and significant long-term consequences to this because you read things. about how this affects the U.S. moral stature in the world. And so, right now we have this U.S.-China thing. Well,
You call
regardless of what's
it
going
United
on,
States moral? Moral?
yeah, I think that there's an issue in how it's perceived in the long run. Okay, what's going on in the world is, I think, sort of, trying to establish moral authority, right? You can only extend your power, as long as you have a certain moral authority. And the problem is that the United States has now become the largest exporter of taxes, fines, regulations, and penalties. I mean, that's what its number one export is, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and this FATCA thing, is a very, very good example of it. And it really needs for the governments to understand that this is, sure, it's about a subset of their citizens, but it's far more than that, because once you let other countries dictate your tax policy, your sovereignty, what you've really done is allowed other countries to, effectively influence very strongly, and in some cases completely determine, how you're able to use the tax system for retirement planning and all these important, social objectives.
yeah.
And, of course, the way to end this problem would be to end this U.S. citizenship taxation. I mean, that's really the root of it, right? That's what causes it.
Now, what they should do in the Senate is to listen to the normal people living outside, doing the utmost best to represent the United States of America, which are so proud of. Let's say it's about the 9 million expats living outside, working for the United States, showing their flag, show how good they are. But even these people are being put in down the drain and left behind. To say,
Oh,
who
their lives
cares?
are being absolutely destroyed.
Yeah,
Particularly the small business people outside the United States. It is truly shocking what they're doing.
yeah,
Um, and long run, there's a cost to this. It's almost like compound interest, where, if you look at it from a day-to-day basis, it doesn't look like much is going on. But over a long period of time, it really, really matters. And, one can say, well, you know, uh, there haven't been that many renunciations, but they are going up. Okay. And over long run, what happens is the U.S. loses, an awful lot of goodwill. And under no set of circumstances could one argue that this is good for the United States. But in any case, that's sort of, philosophy and where the world is going. But for the moment in the here and now, Ronald, you are the man of the year, maybe the man of the century, for having accomplished this.
if I look to the left, there are three big maps. It started with 2018 till 19, 19, 20, 21. I hope my map of 21, 22 will be very, or let's say 22 will be very thin. Why do I have so much information about that stupid FATCA rule?
Why
It
do you
cost me,
have to?
yeah,
Because you were born in the USA. And
yeah,
what's becoming increasingly clear is that a U.S. birthplace, unless you want to live in the United States, has become a clear disability.
yeah.
No doubt about it.
It's a shame. But
Well,
yeah,
it is
you,
a shame. I mean, why would any country want to, work so hard into diminishing the value of its citizenship? Fair statement.
yeah,
But I have, over the years, come to the conclusion that this is a long-term project, and that the first step in trying to get change, if that's what you're trying to do, is to be able to get some engagement. And, all forms of engagement, I think, are to be celebrated and, you know, used as a possible first step in something more.
yeah, that's true.
So, unfortunately, you and I are both in our 60s. So for us, we are not doing this kind of advocacy work for ourselves. That, I think that's pretty clear, right? That,
Yeah,
the beneficiaries of this will be the next generation. Uh, that's the reality. But, like you, I think this is a sufficiently important issue that I don't think this should be just, brushed away. And it's very clear, and I think you would agree, the implications of this go far beyond you. Although I'm so pleased for you. Okay, I'm happy for your result, but they go so far beyond you, so far beyond me. So far beyond any people, who are sort of working at this as a long-term project that, it's the small things along the way, that will gradually add up to making a result, creating a result. And again, as we come to an end here today, I absolutely, if I had a hat on, I'd take it off to you. I absolutely congratulate you for the court decision, but much more, okay, for your conviction, your fortitude, your willingness to continue on with this. Because obviously there's not a lot personally for you at stake here in an economic sense, right?
No,
And,
nothing.
for being an example.
I detest the things going on. It's just not so right. And I really feel ashamed for the governments doing this to their own people. Not people are that fortunate they can go to court. They also, that's the lower side of our community. They cannot go to a judge or to a court because they don't have money for it. Like
That's
I said,
exactly right. That's exactly right. And even if they did have the money, this stuff is so insanely complex. It is so complex.
yeah, I got text messages that said, "Oh, I would already have been giving up 364 times doing that, but you just kept going. Yeah, because of also not only for me, but also from the people who are afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I do it. And I think the politicians should still work on this, and don't say, "Oh, we're working on." No, they should finish this. Now they have the time.
They
Yeah,
should. And that's why, engagement with them is important as well. All these small steps. But Ronald, the bottom line is you are a good man. And, when history is written, if you're in it at all, but I think you can be more than a footnote, okay?
yeah. That's my
That will say is that you were a good man and you did the right thing. And for
yeah.
that, I thank you and congratulate you. You are maybe not one of a kind, but one of a small group of people.
Yeah. Thank
Willing
you very much. Yeah,
where character matters. That was a book written by Peggy Noonan. Where
yeah.
character
Everything
matters.
matters. Yeah, yeah.
You got character, Ronald. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having me, John.
And we will continue with this as appropriate.